Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy. I'm your host Leo, and today we are talking about Batman, The Doom That Came to Gotham, the 2023 DC Elseworld animated film based off of the comic of the same name. So, what is it? So I honestly hadn't really heard of it at all. Supposedly the comic is from around 2000-ish, and is of course part of the DC Elseworlds series, where they take, popular comic book characters such as Batman in this case, or Superman, and they put them in different situations. So this is kind of where Superman Red Sun comes from, the what if Superman landed in Soviet Russia, that kind of thing. In this case, it is what if Batman but Cthulhu? Question mark? Or more precisely, what if Batman but H.P. Lovecraft and whatnot? Now, this is the 2023 film adaptation. I have not read the comic, and I had not seen this film. My history with this concept is fairly fleeting. In fact, I think the last DC comic I read, I think, was a Flash comic, part of the newer-ish Flash series. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, I have some interest in DC comics and whatnot, but I don't dive that deep into the comic side of things, save for maybe Star Wars. I've read a good amount of the Star Wars comics, but I am very far behind. That's kind of more my wheelhouse of comics. Or I've also read the Adventure Zone comics. But other than that, I don't really read comics that much, except for I guess manga as well. I read quite a bit of manga, mostly on my phone. Anywho, I was just kind of perusing around Max, trying to figure out what am I going to watch, and this was actually in my list, because I guess I came across it while I was searching through things that I could potentially watch on Max, and I was like, yeah, that looks weird and fun. It's Batman and H.P. Lovecraft, and while I'm not super deep into either of those things, I do generally enjoy both things. So the H.P. Lovecraft stories and Batman stories. Two things I generally kind of like together. Yay! Now, my history with either franchise is relatively limited. I have seen a few Batman movies, and I haven't read any Batman comics. Well, no, I still haven't read any. I do have Batman 66 just kind of sitting, waiting for me to read it. Because I have Volume 1. I wanted, to have a couple of volumes before I, dove in. But, yeah. And then I have I think it's the Alfred Pennyworth one, where it's just kind of a comic that's like a love letter to Alfred, I think. I can't remember. I have some weird Alfred comic, I think it is. Yeah, that aside, I have the Batman 66 comic, and I also want the Batman 89 comic, which is supposed to be a continuation of the 1989 Batman's story, but in comic book form. Because it would be fun. Because that is probably my favorite Batman, is the Michael Keaton 1989 Batman, just because it's a bit sillier and, it's fun. My experience with H.P. Lovecraft is a lot more distant. I know that the author, H.P. Lovecraft, is a absolute horrible person. There's no getting around that. He's a dogshit person. Or was. That's the benefit of an author who is dead, is they're definitely not benefiting from your enjoyment or purchasing or whatever of their material. Plus, a lot of people that he was very against because he was very homophobic and racist have actually taken to his stories and given them new life. And, they've kind of reclaimed it and made beautiful art out of his terrible racism and homophobia. So, that's a beautiful thing. Now, I have The closest I've come to actually reading an H.P. Lovecraft story is for one of my community college classes. We kind of were able to pitch a story, or we had to pitch a story that we would then kind of lead a discussion on. And I chose an H.P. Lovecraft story, and I had trouble getting through the story. In fact, I don't think I got through the full thing, because his prose is very droning on, and I have some trouble with the droning of it, which I think is kind of some of the appeal of H.P. Lovecraft. Is he kind of hits this kind of thing where you feel the existential horror partially through the just annoyance that is his prose, mixed with the the description that can go on for super long, because he gives very detailed descriptions of things while also keeping things super vague. But yeah, I've more enjoyed the material that has come from H.P. Lovecraft's stories, not necessarily the stories themselves. For example, I watched the 70s Dunwich horror film, and I enjoyed it. It was fairly simple, and where I was expecting oh my god, terrible horror, what? It was more like, yeah, that happened. And part of the thing that got me interested in it is, for a different community college class, I needed to go out and watch plays, go enjoy the theater. So one of the classes I chose was one of the plays I chose was a night with H.P. Lovecraft, I believe is what it was called, and it was an adaptation of 3 of his stories. I cannot fully remember them. I think one of them was Dunwich Horror. Another one was about a painting, I think, an art thing, and then I can't remember the last one. But the night was kind of punctuated mostly by errors happening in the show, where the guy would pull out a gun and shoot it, but the sound cue wouldn't play until 10 seconds later. It was more an unintentionally funny play than anything. But that got me interested in potentially reading the stories and potentially seeing other versions of the story brought to life. And as for the reading of the stories, I never really got around to doing that. I own a book that is the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft, but I haven't fully read it. That's where I got the one story that we were supposed to read for that class that I suggested we read for the class, and then I just kind of fucking dropped the ball on that, But that's, the story of my life. We'll just kind of avoid that for now. But yeah, that's kind of my history with H.P. Lovecraft and my history with Batman. Now, this story together, I find very interesting. Now, I do not know much about the original comic because, of course, I did not read the original comic, but I do have the Wikipedia page for the comic up. Supposedly the title is an allusion to one of H.P. Lovecraft's stories, The Doom That Came to Sarnath. I have fucking no clue. It came out in 2000, from November 2000 to January 2001, and wasn't compiled, surprisingly, into one full volume until 2015 as a trade paperback. That's kind of funny that they took that long to compile 3 issues of a comic into one volume. But hey. Now this, I'm pretty sure, is fairly bare bones of a Wikipedia entry, to be fair, as it literally just has a 1-paragraph summary of the story, and it it has more backstory of the story than the actual story summary itself. As for the fandom one, it has the issues broken up into 3 things, and then the collection, but it has no summary of the story whatsoever. So I can't really say for sure how accurate it is. I can say based off of the cover that I see here. I don't think, well, maybe since it has this, it'll... Okay, so if I click each volume, it does give a summary of the things, the volume's story. So I can see the characters that are involved and what is going on. Good to know. Yeah, so we can go ahead and kind of dive in. From the looks of it, there are some big-ish differences between it, as there are a lot of characters that are in the original that aren't in the movie, and a lot of characters that are in the movie but aren't in the original. Something that I do enjoy, for sure, to do with these Elseworld stories is it is fun to see these characters in different situations. So let's go ahead and kind of dive into the story real quick. So this is set in the 1920s, similar to most of the H.P. Lovecraft stories. That's kind of the era that most of them are set. And it opens with Bruce Wayne, Sanjay Todd, Dick Grayson, Kylie Kane. They are Batman's wards, and they have arrived in the Antarctic searching for the lost Cobblepot party. Oswald Cobblepot and his party have gone missing in the Antarctic, and they came to search. They come across the camp to find most of the Cobblepot party dead, and all save for 2 are accounted for. It is under the advisement of his wards, I believe specifically Sanjay, that they get the fuck out of there. But Bruce must find the others to, make sure everyone's accounted for. So he goes venturing out into the icy wastes and does come across Oswald Cobblepot, naked and boiled the hell out in the middle of the frozen ice shelf. When he tries to catch up to Cobblepot, he flees. So then Bruce continues on and comes across a cave where he finds the other guy, a man named Greddon. He is chipping away at an ice wall in this cave and explains that Cobblepot is gone and that he was once a man named Greddon, but is no longer. And he is digging there and is... That's the issue, is a lot of things are, described in indescribable ways, kind of thing, and it's all esoteric bullshit. So, basically, what it is he is trying to dig out this unspeakable being from behind this ice thing, but if to look upon it is to look upon madness and accept madness, so don't do that. In order to avoid that, he dug out his eyes, and is, I guess, also dead, but now he's undead. And he, in order to serve his master, he cut out his eyes so that he didn't invite madness. But he's able to break through, technically, as Bruce is trying to take him out of the cave, but he's able to wrestle his way away as Bruce is kind of fighting off the madness of the thing. He goes over and gets a nice tasty bite of tentacle from the being, and then is taken away by Bruce to the ship. They make their way back to Gotham as Bruce is going through Cobblepot's journals and is learning of this unspeakable doom that is coming to Gotham and that he must try and prevent. As they are leaving, by the way, it does show that Oswald is still technically alive, but he's now just living with the penguins, the weird mutated penguins that are there. But they make their way back to Gotham City, where we do get a bit of a flashback on Bruce's history. He was just hanging out with his parents by a fountain. His mom gives a bit of an ominous thing of like, oh, you have big boots to fill because yo daddy built the city. Ooh. And he's like, but the dad's like, hey, don't make him worry about the boots that he has to fill. A man has to walk in his own shoes before he fills someone else's. As they're having this conversation, a man comes up and goes to try and stab Bruce Wayne's dad. His mom goes to try and stop the attack, but gets knocked out and is probably the most brutal death of the film, as she dies when she smashes her head on the corner of the fountain. Now, this death is technically extra sad and a little silly when we see just how much of a beating Bruce Wayne takes throughout the film. Things that would have killed him a million times over if, the world was kind of following the same logic that killed his mom. And then, of course, his dad gets stabbed. He's left alone. He flees, goes up to a bell tower where he looks upon the shape of madness, and bats kind of became an inspiration for Batman. That became his inspiration to become the Bat, is what he's kind of called mostly throughout the film, not Batman. He, I guess from that point, follows kind of the traditional Batman route, except for instead of being able to just kind of fly wherever, he's got to take boats and shit. So he's been spending most of his life traveling around the world, and that is where he's kind of picked up these wards of Dick Grayson, Sanjay Todd, and Kylie Kane. Now, these characters are just like slight tweaks up on other characters. So Sanjay Todd, or J Todd, is Jason Todd, and Kylie Kane is what was Cassandra Kane. That's it. And I think it's just mostly like they were changed because like he's been traveling the world, so of course he probably picked up a new ward in other places. But as it is, she was not in the original comic. Of course, yeah, her first appearance was only like a year earlier anyway, so fair enough. And yeah, so she is kind of takes the main, I guess, Robin role in a way, sort of. But yeah, he's gathered them and they make their way to Gotham. The wards draw straws to see who stays on the boat to keep an eye on the corpse that's still alive but very cold. And Sanjay draws the short straw. So they all go back to the manor where they find a corpse just waiting for them in the manor. And this corpse is that of Langstrom, or Kirk Langstrom. I don't know if he has any like history in the actual comics, but he's there. Now, instead of like calling the cops or anything, they kind of just put the corpse in the cellar and leave it there. Afterwards, he goes to a dinner at Oliver Queen's mansion, where Oliver Queen gets absolutely soused. Now, this is supposed to be like Prohibition era, so I didn't even realize that until late. But yeah, anyway, they go to the dinner, and there's this awkwardness, and Bruce Wayne leaves his ward, his two other wards, Dick Grayson and Kylie Kane, with Oliver Queen, mostly having them keep an eye on him because he's getting absolutely shit-faced. And he then goes out to investigate. This is when we first see Batman, which is about 18 minutes into the film. We get a look at the costume earlier, but this is the first time we see him actually technically in action. He goes and stops some corrupt cops that are looking around Langstrom's apartment, and they're trying to just find some money. But he knocks them out and finds that he's been he has this circle, a ritual circle drawn, and he has left a kind of warning and whatnot behind. And Batman then goes and reads it and learns that a great doom is coming to Gotham, and there is but one way to stop it. In order for the cult of Ghoul to complete their ritual, they need a book, the Testament. If they cannot get the Testament, they cannot complete the ritual. So, Batman remembers from Cobblepot's diaries that he has the Testament somewhere in Gotham. in his diaries, he said that he left his testament in his roost or whatever. So he goes to try and retrieve said testament and calls the person who's looking over Cobblepot's things by literally tapping into the phone line into the building in order to do that, which I found funny. Something else I found funny is that like technology he uses. He uses a lighter, like a flint and tinder version of a UV light to find Langstrom's final words, I guess. But yeah. So he calls and he's like, hey, I want the testament. And the guy's like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And this isn't a lending library. This is the university archives or repository or whatever the fuck. And he hangs up and then, of course, doing what most idiots do in these kinds of movies, immediately goes to the thing that was mentioned, takes it out, and looks at it longingly. And he talks to himself saying, I know that Mr. Cobblepot said that I should burn you, but even if I could, I wouldn't have. Like, while he's kind of stroking the book and whatnot. And at that moment, Talia al Ghul comes in to retrieve the book. He knows of her and is scared shitless. And asks her, pretty please don't kill me. And she says, I'm going to let the lizard decide. So this fire lizard thing crawls into his ear and turns him into like this demon djinn thing as Batman comes in to retrieve the testament from Talia. She's like, nah, you go ahead and deal with this guy here, this flaming demon guy, while you go. Batman attempts to defeat said demon by having it destroy the walls of this tower building and collapse it on top of them while he kind of escapes using some acid. But that doesn't work, and he ends up being rescued by the demon Etrigan, who had visited him through the host of Jason Blood, who stopped by to warn him, hey, the only way that this is going to work is if Bruce Wayne dies to become himself. You visit the two spirits, one wrapped in flame and one wrapped in bats, and Gotham cannot be saved until it is first burned to the ground. Those are the three things that have to happen for things to work out. That's what he said, and then he's like, oh, when you face your foe, I shall be there, etc., etc. And then he jumps out the window. But then he comes back and is like, get the fuck out of here. I'm going to sacrifice myself. See ya. And leaves. He ends up getting bottled, which I think the movie was kind of building as a twist, but at the same time, it was very obvious and wasn't a twist. But yeah, so he then goes and tries to stop Talia again. But then she has another demon guy, which I'm guessing is this universe's version of Killer Croc, is my best guess. He fights the crocodile thing and escapes after using a train to both escape and hit it. And then he makes his way back to the manor. Meanwhile, the crocodile thing is sent to go get the key, which is heavily implied and later shown to be the corpse in the boat. And we're also shown that Kylie and Dick are putting Oliver Queen to bed as he feels super guilty about something, and is kind of partially explained that that's probably why he gets drunk. And he goes to sleep. But after the crocodile guy is sent to get the key, we kind of get a smash cut to Jim Gordon looking over the harbor, and it's just like, it's like June, right? And all of a sudden, for some reason, Dick, Kylie, and Oliver Queen are there. Just, poof. all of a sudden, all's well. Time kind of jumps around back and forth, or not necessarily back and forth, but everywhere around this film. And it just kind of fast forwards over certain events. For example, I think around this time, while they're investigating, Bruce Wayne, after fighting the crocodile guy, has, bandaged his wounds and is sequencing a thing to take care of the crocodile guy. He's also looking at maps and whatnot to figure out where this, mausoleum under the city is, where Talia is going. Yeah, so back at the harbor, Dick is able to, with the help of Oliver Queen, kind of skirt around the police and go to the boat, which is now frozen in the harbor, and finds that Sanjay is dead. He's been frozen by Grendon. As he's trying to face Grendon, he gets attacked by, I'm going to just say Killer Croc, and killed. He gets a few shots off, but does nothing. So Croc gets off with Grendon, who's essentially this universe's version of Victor Freeze. And the police rush in to find that Dick Grayson is dead, along with Sanjay. Todd is also dead. One frozen, one ripped apart by Crocodile Guy. A call is sent to Alfred, who's throughout the film been receiving calls from Barbara Gordon, trying to get Bruce Wayne's attention, but she keeps missing him. But this time he's informed of the death of Dick and Jay. So, Batman is off investigating the sewers, comes across their little hideout where Talia has resurrected Ra's al Ghul, and they are trying to perform a ritual. For some reason, I'll be honest, it's not fully explained why they do this step of the ritual. In fact, a lot of the steps in this plan is confusing as hell, to be honest. Because, here, I'll just run you through what their plan seems to be. Their plan seems to be this ritual. So, Talia summons Ra's and resurrects him so that he can perform a ritual that summons a shit ton of lizards to overrun the city and help get Harvey Dent elected mayor. Then they take the frozen guy, kill him to retrieve the bit of tentacle thing that came from the monster thing, and then they turn that pile of goo into Poison Ivy, who then goes and infects Harvey Dent with a thing that, like a rash that gets super itchy, and then he becomes, classic looking Two-Face, which then he just becomes like a door. So, and they keep talking about the gateway. So my best guess is that they had to get Harvey Dent to become the gateway by using the key, which was Freeze, who they turned into Ivy, and then, but why they used the lizards to get him elected mayor? No fucking clue. Maybe that was the only way that they could get him to be in the place where he could easily shake someone's hand. I don't know. It's very silly. But anywho, after that, they get the gateway and then they start to summon the beasties. Batman's gone a little bit insane, and so has Oliver Queen. And Oliver Queen has been given kind of temporary watch over Kylie, who in this is like a, I don't know, early teenager, I would say. But he goes and he suits up in his finest armor, and he's been repeating the phrase of late, the sins of the father are kind of laid upon the son, or whatever. Something like that. It's basically the sins of the father is passed down to the son for the son to bear. He's preparing for war. He is trying to make up for the sins of his father specifically, who had lived for hundreds of years and had helped found the city and had done terrible shit to do so. The biggest sin, at least in Queen's mind, is the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. He is the guy that killed them. That is the sin that he's been trying his hardest to make up for. And he's been preparing for the doom that was coming to Gotham, feeling that he is the one that had to face it. And he collected, these artifacts and whatnot, and he ends up fighting Poison Ivy, killing her, and sadly himself in the crossfire. Kylie's able to get Bruce to kind of snap out of his, zone long enough to go visit Oliver as he's dying, and he is able to put Oliver's guilt to rest before he dies. Bruce then starts making his final preparations. He visits the graves of his 2 male wards, is approached by Gordon, who tells him that his daughter has been calling for him. She had an accident 2 years ago, which makes it to where she can convene with spirits, and is trying to get him to go visit her because there's a spirit that he needs to talk to. He knows that it's the spirit wrapped in flames. He goes and visits her and speaks to said spirit, and the spirit is his father. His father is the spirit wrapped in flames, and everything is explained. Let me see if I can get this right. Thomas Wayne, has also been living for hundreds of years. Because Cobblepot, Langstrom, and Queen, Oliver Queen's father, all were pilgrims that founded the city of Gotham, or I guess it was the village of Gotham at the time. But things were very harsh, and people kept dying in this, small settlement. And Oswald Cobblepot found a book in this land, and they performed rituals that brought forth the summoning of this ancient, unknowable being, which has a name. It is somewhere around here, Log-Sotha or Yog-Sotha. It's a big old tentacle thing. But yeah, so these guys performed the ritual that saved the town and brought them immense wealth and immortality to an extent. And all was well, except for it wasn't. Once they learned that terrible shit was coming, Oswald Cobblepot fled to the south, but possibly to search for something, but possibly to just flee the thing, and gave instructions to destroy the tome to try and prevent the thing from coming, but at the same time just wanted to get the fuck out of there. He ended up going mad and joining the Penguins. Langstrom went mad and killed himself, supposedly, is what happened. Oliver Queen's dad killed Bruce Wayne's dad, and Bruce Wayne's dad died. He got stabbed. And so, as I think the only 2 descendants, the burden of righting the wrongs was put upon both Queen and Bruce Wayne. But the only one that could actually succeed was Bruce Wayne, because of his vision of the bats, his communication with the bats as they showed him the madness, but his mortal mind had sealed off that memory to be reignited at a later date. So, yes. After this, he goes and starts his final preparations, putting pretty much everything he owns, but he says that Kylie is now the person to watch over the wine cellar. But I'm pretty sure that was him giving her everything. Just saying that, you are now the steward of everything. But yeah, he then goes and starts his trek to damnation, I guess. He goes, and as he's exploring this area, he comes across Harvey Dent, who is the doorway now, And he's just like, yeah, I'm here, and then does nothing. Then Batman goes in, and he ends up fighting like zombie versions of Jay, Dick, and Oliver Queen. And he uses Oliver Queen's arrows to dispatch them one by one, kind of saying his final goodbyes to them, sort of. The only one that actually speaks is Oliver Queen, who says that, he's like, thank God, kick their asses, or beat their asses, one of those two. And then he disappears. Then Batman goes, fights Talia al Ghul, who says, like, oh, in another life or another situation, we could have, been on the same side, and we could have been friends. And then he kills her with his last arrow, saying that all of my friends seem to have a bad habit of dying. And then she dies. Then he fights Ra's al Ghul, who I think turns into Cthulhu. At least I think that's what he says, is that he is Cthulhu. He fights him, and in doing this, he gets caught and has to shed his identity as Bruce Wayne to become the Bat, and he becomes the Batman. Which is funny because he's technically the Man-Bat in this specific case. But yeah, he becomes the Batman, an actual, like, big old bat, and fights with the Cthulhu Ra's al Ghul, kills him, and his spirit goes up, and the old one god thing starts coming through the portal, and then Batman remembers, oh yeah, there was the jar that I've been carrying around this entire time. He grabs the jar, breaks it, he goes and explodes. He's like, yeah, good, you did the thing. You became who you're supposed to be. You met with the spirit wrapped in bats, and you met with the spirit wrapped in flames. Now all we gotta do is burn this shit to the ground. And then he blows up and kills the old god thing, or at least pushes it back. And then, quote unquote, burns Gotham to the ground. But the damage shown is like maybe a building. Like, we see the city in flames, yes, but the next scene is literally like, it's fixed. It's the same thing with the lizard plague that came across Gotham. Like, they're like, we're up to our waists in lizards and shit. And the town, like, cars are on fire and flipped over and shit. But literally, like, when Batman crawls out, you just see some snakes and a couple lizards just kind of hanging out. And it's very silly. But then, like, we hear over the radio, hey, fucking Harvey Dent won the thing, and not only did he win the thing, but the lizards just all disappeared. That was nice. Dust. We're good. But yeah, so in the explosion, you kind of get the presumption that, Batman died, and we jump to Kylie kind of giving a bit of a eulogy as they had started a Bruce Wayne Foundation, and she is the kind of de facto steward of the foundation and chairperson of the foundation. And they dedicate statues to Bruce Wayne, Oliver Queen, and Harvey Dent. And she gives a speech saying that, if we really need him, even in death, Bruce Wayne would find a way to come and help. And then it goes up to the clock tower with the bell, and he's in the clock tower. So in this world, Batman is a Batman, and Bruce Wayne is officially dead, and he'll help and maybe fight crime and do stuff, but for the most part, he's just kind of there. Maybe he's an immortal being that will reign over Gotham and like help out. Who knows? But yeah, that's the story. It's good. I like it, at least. I mean, yeah, there's the weird pacing issues where all of a sudden it'll jump, like, from them putting Oliver Queen to bed, like the little baby he is, to all of a sudden he's sober and doing fine, and they're going to investigate the harbor, and you're like, when the fuck did this happen? Like, what? Why? Or the fact that the snakes get cleaned up in like the snap of a finger. And also, yeah, the plan is a bit weird and not fully like explain what the exact steps are. Like, why did they have to do all of that to get Harvey Dent to be the door? Why did Harvey Dent have to be the door? I don't know. But, yeah. Who knows? But yeah, I like the ways that they use classic Batman villains in these new ways. You know, Freeze being a corpse that's from the Antarctic, and he gets these like ice powers that just kind of flow off of him. Like, they don't, you know, they don't, he doesn't have control over them per se. They just kind of flow off of him because he's an ice corpse. And him becoming Poison Ivy is a bit weird, but the use of Poison Ivy to create Two-Face is very interesting, as the way it's done is she like touches him, and when he goes to talk to a doctor, the doctor's like, yeah, it's a case of Poison Ivy. And he's like, I haven't been near plants. And the doctor's like, oh, maybe it's stress then. Here, take this ointment, don't itch it. And then he becomes like classic Two-Face looking, where he's then taken by Talia. He's like, you know, whoever you are, kill me, please. And she's like, not yet. We need you as a door, I guess. And they just kind of set him down, and like his rash becomes the door. It's weird, but yeah, overall though, very interesting. The Killer Croc, which I'm pretty sure is Killer Croc, very cool. The Penguin doesn't really do a whole lot. He's mostly used in backstory and as kind of the kickoff for this story. But yeah, he's just, I guess, chilling in the Antarctic as a penguin now, and is immortal presumably. So he's living his best life, I guess. Yeah. Do I recommend this? Absolutely. Do I want to read the original comic? Yeah, it's made me very curious, because I know that Kylie Kane isn't in the story, because I can actually like look at the like Wikipedia articles, one of them at least, and it shows that the characters that are in it are Jason and Dick, but instead of Cassandra, or in this case Kylie, it is Tim Drake. So yeah, so Tim Drake is the one in the Kylie role in the actual original. So Kylie is actually in the Tim Drake role, and they're, I guess, more one for one instead of from around the world. But I think that the overall changes make sense, and it works out pretty well. I do, again, still want to give an idea of like what the actual comics thing was, but I'll have to figure that out at some other point. Yeah. With that said, though, we can kind of now do a bit of an update thing with how things are going. Because as I said last week, you know, I was starting a job. I've started said job, and it's actually going really well. A hell of a lot better than the other jobs I've tried to do so far. So, yay, success. This one will last a good long while, hopefully, and it feels like a job I could do for a very long time. So I'm looking forward to that. I just need to adjust to my new schedules, which is going to be a little bit difficult with the fact that, one, my schedule is going to change in like a week, but otherwise from then on it should be consistent. I just need to figure out how I'm going to do the podcast episodes after that. I don't know. Because right now, for this week, I have Saturday and Sunday off. Like today is Friday. I worked a very long shift, and then I'm home and I'm recording this, so that's part of the reason why things might sound a little bit rambly, as I have been up for a very long time. It is now 10 at night. I woke up at 7 in the morning and was late to work today. So it's been a bit of a stressful day. But things are still going well. Anyhow, updates. I have figured out a punishment for the challenge. I figured that out. I will be discussing that in depth in the September episode of the challenge, but the long and short of it is, yeah, I fucked up. The challenge is technically failed. So as punishment for the failure, one, since I'm back anyway, I can restore things back to just being the games on my PS5. So no Vita, no Steam Deck. Those will just have to wait until after the challenge has officially ended. Then, in order to make things right, I must finish 3 games to their completion. By that, I need to platinum 3 games. These are games that I have already finished, but they must be platinumed. These games will be Ni no Kuni 2, Spider-Man 2, and Cat Quest. Now, 2 of these games I have already done episodes on, finishing them, but now I must go through and platinum them. I will, for that episode, which will come out in October, I will discuss the platinum experience of these games. I'll probably, since Spider-Man 2 was not a game that I completed for the challenge, I will probably discuss the game's story lightly, but talk about the overall platinum experience for it primarily. If I finish all 3 of those in a fairly fast fashion, then a 4th game must be platinumed, to be determined. It depends on really how fast I platinum the other 3, which I don't think will be very fast. The fastest one might be Cat Quest, as that's just kind of grinding it out to the end. Spider-Man 2 is going to be a while, because I did very little of the overworld quests. And Ni no Kuni 2 is also going to take a while, because also side quests. I'm just going to have to pretty much sit down and just tick off each side quest, go from top to bottom, and just do the side quests. That's going to be one of the big things, as well as all of the skirmishes and getting a level 4 kingdom, etc. It's going to take a while to do, but it is all very doable. I will also, for this coming up episode, I am going to discuss kind of the games I tried to play during this stuff, as well as I'll go in depth into VR and the VR games that I've played and whatnot, and how it works and the interesting things about it. But otherwise, that's it. That's kind of what it's going to be. That's kind of the updates of what's going on. I'm very excited that things are going pretty smooth and are going fairly well. Now, as for what I'll do because right now I have Saturday and Sunday off, but then I'll be moving to Monday, Tuesday off. What I'll do when the Monday, Tuesday days come is going to be hard to figure out. My best bet would be to watch something on Saturday night, maybe, and then record it on Sunday night and edit it on Sunday night, maybe. It's either that or I watch and record it on Saturday at some point and then edit it on Sunday. I still have to figure this out. But I do have an idea of what I'm doing for the next few episodes. One, I am doing... the next 2 episodes are going to be Singing in the Rain and The Greatest Dictator. These 2 I've kind of paired together because I'll kind of explain more next week, but they kind of work together thematically, kind of. Then I will be doing the original 1930s King Kong. Then after that, I will be doing the 2nd season of My Adventures with Superman. I'm very excited for that. Then after that, I believe I plan on trying to do Jurassic World Aftermath, which is a VR game that I can talk about. And then I also plan on doing Jurassic Park, the book. So I do have a plan kind of going far out. We'll see how that plan goes, but otherwise, that's the idea. It's a lot. Things might change, of course, but that is the general kind of layout of things going forward. I also do intend to try and stream playing Jurassic World Aftermath, though there's one thing that's not really working for what I would like to do, and I might need to fiddle around with that. But otherwise, yeah, that is about it. That's the long and short of it. So with that said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys liked this and you are listening on YouTube, feel free to give it a like, comment, and subscribe. Or if you are listening to this on any podcast catcher of your choice, feel free to rate and review it and share it with your friends. But with that said, thank you guys once again so much for listening. I will talk to you guys next week. Goodbye.